Welcome to the 5th guest episode of Lessons from Success. I'm honoured to have Peter Ward as our 5th guest episode, as he runs Wardy IT Solutions, which is one of Brisbane's largest IT startups with over 70 staff. He has began further expanding internationally and is set for massive growth in the UK, New Zealand and USA over the coming years. Peter also runs an investment company that focuses solely on IT investments and does incredibly well at anything he steps into. In our interview, Peter discusses his unique way of expanding internationally, where the world of data is heading, important lessons he's learned as a successful entrepreneur, and everything you need to know about managing 70 plus staff. Make sure you stay up to date on our Instagram at lessonsfromsuccess_podcast and on our Facebook at Lessons from Success as well. Well, without further ado, let's get Peter on the show. Right, thanks so much for joining us today, Peter. We've got Peter Ward from Wardy's IT Solutions. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to join the podcast. Looking forward to it today.
Perfect. So would you like to begin by telling us a little bit about your business and how it's grown so large so far?
Yeah, look, the easiest way to describe me is the Wardy and Wardy IT Solutions. I'm a technician at heart. I used to work for one of the largest Microsoft SQL Server sites south of the equator. I was living down in Melbourne and missed the sunshine of Brisbane, so moved back up here and didn't know what I wanted to do, so ended up becoming an independent consultant and realised very quickly that many medium and small size organisations don't have access to the same level of skills and capabilities that large enterprises do in managing their data environment. So hence started a business and grew it to where we are today.
That's amazing. And so you started down in Melbourne. What did you study to go into that piece, or?
Yeah, look, I was at one of the lucky ones that sort of came out of university around about the year 2000, where if you could spell IT, you could get a job. So ended up landing a role there and actually didn't finish university until many, many years later, where I thought I should go back and get a degree at some stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're certified directly through Microsoft. What was it like getting that certification?
Yeah, so the certification process that we've received as an organisation is of the highest calibre. We've been recognised as a Microsoft Gold partner for many years, but really the highest accolade that we're very, very proud of is receiving the Worldwide Partner of the Year award from Microsoft in the data platform space. That was certainly a very high accolade for the work that the guys do on a day-to-day basis.
That's amazing. So did it start with just you and the consulting piece?
Yeah, so started as me as an independent consultant and really grew organically. And that's how we continue to grow today. That first customer that I had is still a customer today. So really it's testament to the amazing customer service that our team deliver on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, for sure. Who was the first customer, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so that first customer was Wardy Group. So sort of transformed and a new brand now with Fusion Retail, but still a client that we've done work with.
Oh, that's awesome. And how many clients have you got in the books now, if you can even count that many?
Yeah, so look, our managed services customers is really where we're focusing a lot of our attention on today. So really those customers that we provide that 24/7 support, and that customer base today is over 110 customers that we provide support every single day, 24/7.
Yeah, wow. So it started as a consulting, and that was back in 2005, is that right?
Yeah, correct. 2005 as an independent consultant. Basically the reason it started was the recruitment company that put me in a position, decided that I needed to have a company structure. And what do you do? It's the Australian way. You whack a Y or an O at the end, and Wardo didn't sound particularly good, so we went with the Wardy option, and the rest is history.
I actually had one of my good friends from high school was named Wardy as well, so it worked out perfect. So how did you get into, so now you're not just in the consulting piece, you've definitely expanded into education and those sorts of things and training as well. How did it sort of develop into that, and was that always something that you thought you'd like to do?
Yeah, so really the service offerings that we provide in Wardy IT Solutions has been driven by customer demand. I'm a DBA at heart, and that's where I started, so hence the reason we have such a strong pedigree in the data platform space supporting organisations' data assets. However, as we started to work with organisations, more and more they're asking the question of how do they turn their data into an asset? How do they deliver better insight and better value out of that? So hence the reason we then started to deliver data analytics solutions, so both in the BI space but also advanced analytics and machine learning. We also then developed the training practice as well, is because customers were wanting to then pick up the same skills and be able to then bring those directly in-house that our team had as well. So became a Microsoft certified learning partner, developed our own course content, and now provide that delivery online where people around the world access our training content. And the same reason with the managed service as well, as we had a customer that was having some challenges with one of their overnight processes, and they turned to us and said, Wardy, can you help support this? And we said, of course we can, and hence then started to go and roll the virtual DVA solution. That solution originally was developed by me, but I don't think there's a line of code left in that underlying technology anymore.
Well, I mean, that was quite a time ago, so I can see why there wouldn't be too much code left in there at all. That's really cool. So everything you've done has sort of been driven by the demand of the customer.
Yeah, and that's really where we're starting to focus now as more and more organisations move to the cloud. One of the key parts that they're struggling with is around that cloud optimisation piece. Internally, we call it dialing the cloud down, so being able to reduce that ongoing operational costs. So hence one of the new latest features we've put in SQL Beacon, which is the underlying technology that powers our virtual DBA solution, is designed to support that challenge that organisations have.
That's a really, really interesting piece. And as it moves more towards the cloud, do you think essentially everything will be going onto that as time goes on, or?
Yeah, so I think for a very long time, organisations will run a hybrid environment where there will still be servers and infrastructure that will be in a traditional data centre, whether that's on the customer's premises or in a partner data centre. But longer term, definitely workload will start to move to the cloud, which then starts to open up new opportunities for organisations.
Yeah, would you mind saying a couple of the new opportunities that you think will open up the doors for?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're seeing the opportunity is really around that personalisation. So being actually able to understand what a customer's needs are and be able to deliver services specifically for that. Example being in retail, knowing exactly what the next logical purchase for that customer is going to be. Being able to then have targeted marketing campaigns, whether that's driven by electronic marketing or even having access to what that person's purchased before and empowering the person on the store floor to create that personalisation experience. And that's all being driven by artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions, which are very easy to access inside of a cloud environment.
Awesome. Do you mind if I ask a couple of questions about you and go into those sort of details?
No, I'm more than happy for you to unpack that.
Awesome. So in terms of yourself, did you know that you always wanted to be an entrepreneur and start the company and do all that, or?
Yeah, look, I still sort of struggle with the word entrepreneur and being called that because really it's just about doing the job that we do on a day-to-day basis and getting recognised for that. So for me, it was always almost fell into it and continued to grow. And I think where we started to realise that we were doing something really well was when we put our first employee on and then had to move office 3 times in 1 year because we continued to grow that grow the office. So we sort of knew that we were onto something, but it was never something we deliberately intended to be an entrepreneur as such.
Yeah, was it easy making the shift then from the professional services space over to your own business?
Yeah, look, for us it was always, I suppose, that level of risk actually that you sort of walk that fine line. And look, I had a very supportive partner at the time, and I remember sitting on Mission Beach on New Year's Eve and probably a few too many bottles of red wine that we consumed, and we said, let's see what we can do with this. And she supported me through the entire process, which is fantastic.
That's amazing. Is she still on board now?
No, I've actually got a new partner, but these things happen in life sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when was your first, I guess, big achievement within the business?
Look, really for us, we always look back at 2013 as being the poster year for us as an organisation. So 2009, we won the first Microsoft Partner of the Year award in Australia. But 2013, we won both awards in the data platform and data analytics space locally, but also then were recognised on the world stage with the Worldwide Award as well. So we look back at that year, and certainly it was very much the start of something which was even bigger acceleration that we had.
Yeah, for sure. And we're in quite a lovely office now in Spring Hill. Where did it all begin? Was it was it a much smaller environment? And
yeah, so the reality is it actually started in a bedroom at a house that I was renting in Kapira. So when I moved back from Melbourne, we rented out at Kapira. Our first real office, though, was in the Christie Centre down on Adelaide Street.
Oh, cool. That was the first official office.
Yeah, our first official real office where we had desks and people all congregating in one location.
Not just a bedroom.
Yep.
Unreal. That's awesome. So when did you? I know you did a merger and acquisition with a training company. Was that the first sort of collaboration you did with another business in terms of purchasing, or?
Yeah, so we've done now, as part of the Wardy Group, we've actually now done 2 acquisitions, and we've both successfully exited both those acquisitions as well over the last 12 months. So we acquired a CRM company because obviously there's a very tight relationship between data inside of a database and that customer data that sits inside of a CRM, and developed some great IP that was certainly of a lot of interest in the marketplace. And also the training business as well, we were able to then successfully exit that. So we acquired that business. We saw our training facilities as a bit like a hotel. You want to have those beds filled every single day, and hence we acquired a training business to broaden our training skills to ensure that we were then getting the maximum return out of that. But once again, built that up successfully, and there was a lot of interest in that, so hence we were able to then exit that business successfully as well.
Oh, that's perfect. So now it's just focusing on consulting.
Yeah, so our core focus is Wardy IT Solutions, and that encompasses really 4 go-to-markets, one being our data platform capability, one being our data analytics capability, our training, so we still focus very much on their Microsoft data estate and providing training services for that, and then also our managed service with the virtual DBA, and that all comes under the Wardy IT Solutions brand.
Yeah, perfect. A little bit of a left field question here, but in terms of purchasing the businesses when you were looking around, how did you go about deciding which business would be the best to purchase, especially within the training space and everything?
Oh, I think like a lot of things in life, you often trip over them, and they're always opportunistic, and it's really about grabbing hold of that opportunity at the time. So I knew both of those business owners, and for various reasons they were looking for the next stage in their career or the next stage in their life. So we then took the opportunity to be able to then leverage the processes and procedures we had in the Wardy business, and being able to then bring those to improve those other businesses as well.
Yeah, perfect. Was it quite an easy transition after purchase to sort of mold it all under the one brand, or was it a bit more of a challenge?
Yeah, so look, for us, we've sort of now think we've actually got the formula right to be able to then continue to actually invest and grow IT businesses. We've actually now started a separate investment entity, an organisation called Hex 720 Investments, and that's actually focusing on investments in IT organisations. So rather than actually a full acquisition, providing capital, but also then providing grey hair and guidance to help those organisations grow as well.
Yeah, so a bit of a role as an active investor in that piece.
Yeah, with that, we're certainly very active there, and also active with my partner, who actually then runs that business on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, perfect. Are you, so if you were to invest in a company, would it be you there that's doing a lot of that active management piece, or?
Yeah, so when we actually take a stake in a business, we actually look to take an active advisory role, whether it's a formal board member or whether it's actually someone that's actually providing then advisory services on an ongoing basis to help grow that business.
Cool. And how many businesses have you actively invested in so far through that brand?
Yeah, so through Hex 720 Investments, we've got 7 businesses that we've actually currently got investment stakes in.
Oh, wow. And when was that launched, the Hex 70?
Yeah, so Hex 720 has been around about 2 years now, so focusing on growing those other investments outside of Wardy.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, that's all. I honestly didn't even know that was a piece, so that's terrific. It's really cool to hear you were saying that your first amazing year was 2013, although you did have a lot of great milestones beforehand. Any advice you could give to entrepreneurs that are in the earlier stages? Because I know from 2005 to 2009, there definitely was a lot of very hard work going into that piece. Is there any advice you could give a younger entrepreneur that could sort of, help them through the tougher times?
Yeah, so look, the tough times can be tough, and I've had a number of colleagues and friends that sort of gone through that same experience as well. And really, I think it's actually about having a cohort and a network that you can then talk to, whether that's through a formal group such as the Entrepreneurs Organisation, through EO or YPO, or even some of the business networking groups like BNI. Just having a group of people that you can actually talk to, because often you'll find that other people are having exactly the same problems. platforms or they've gone through them in the past, and being able to leverage their experience around that, I think, is key to having people around you. It's often hard to talk about to your normal friends that you're not going to be able to make payroll next week, or that you might be looking to acquire another business and trying to raise $2 million of capital to be able to do that. But by having a group of other business owners around you to provide that support, it means that you've got some other ears that are going through often very similar experiences.
Yeah. Do you have any big, I guess you'd say, not so much failures, but any hardships when the Wardy Group did first come up?
Look, we've been very lucky that we've been able to continue to grow and actually been able to build that base. And one of the key tenets to our organisation is the monthly reoccurring revenue that we have with our virtual DBA service. So that certainly helps underpin certain times in the business cycle.
Yeah, for sure. Is it right at the beginning though? Was there anything that might have almost sunk the company or anything like that, or has it been, I guess, relatively speaking, smooth sailing?
Yeah, look, it's been relative smooth sailing for us. So I was lucky enough to be able to actually start working from day one, and day one I had a billable customer and was able to continue to grow that. So that always sort of provided that safety net for us there. So
that's amazing. Did that come from your professional services background? Or?
Yeah, that came from the professional services background there. So being a consultant, but what we've now realised is, in order to continue to scale, you can only do so many hours of billable work a week. So hence the reason for us making investments in IP and managed services.
Yeah, for sure. That completely makes sense. I mean, there's only so many hours in the week, right? So, in terms of further growth, so is there anything big coming on the horizon for 2019 and beyond for Wardy Group?
Yeah, so for 2019, look, we've made some great inroads in the US marketplace there, so we'll continue to actually grow that business. It's going really, really well. We're also driving the UK as well, so we believe that our service offering will land very similar in the UK to how we've been able to do that through a reseller channel in the US, so I've certainly got great plans there. We're also looking to continue our expansion across the Tasman as well in New Zealand. We're finding that our service is resonating very well as organisations start to move from traditional database environments to the cloud, that our skills and capability then resonate very well. So we'll continue to grow the New Zealand practice as well.
Yeah, for sure. Being the first person on that I've had that has done the global expansion, is there any advice you could give to people that they're sort of at that stage where they've grown quite well nationally, but they're thinking of penetrating those overseas markets? Is there anything important that they need to know, what they should be looking for, and those sorts of things?
Yeah, look, obviously one of the key things is great tax advice and making sure that the structure that you put in place then helps support the ongoing growth of that business there. What we've decided as part of our international expansion is not to have boots on the ground. We've decided to actually be an Australian-based organisation and deliver all of our services directly out of Australia, but then have a reseller channel that actually then sells the services. That way we have a team of people that understand the local marketplace, and we can leverage their existing relationships there and continue to then deliver the service. We believe that we, as Aussies, actually have a bit of a cheeky way about doing things and deliver great outcomes, and so we can continue and growing our team 24/7 in Australia rather than having teams elsewhere in the world.
Oh, that's really interesting, because I did notice that there was a head office in Texas. Is that right?
Yeah, we do. We have an office in Texas there, so just in Irving, which is just outside of Dallas there.
Yeah, and have you employed people from the Wardy Group, or was that all what you were just speaking about in terms of you've trained them up with the Australian way and you provide those services from here in Australia to over there?
Yeah, so all the services we deliver 100% onshore here in Australia. The people that actually, we don't have anyone directly working for us in the international markets. What we've done is built a reseller channel, so those resellers are then reselling those services for us.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's under a completely different brand over there, and do they sell a bunch of different services under that one sort of place?
Yeah, so we found that we have a niche that we can actually work with a number of different SIs. We can actually white label the solution as well, so they can actually then sell it under their own brand, or alternatively they can actually have a straight pass through and be aware that it's Wardy IT Solutions that are delivering that service.
And you just offer them different cuts, varying cuts.
Yeah, and provide them a wholesale rate that they can actually then sell that, and that's both on our IP as well as our managed services.
Oh, that's extremely interesting. So what was the benefits of, I guess, doing that as opposed to going over there with Wardy's IT Solutions and training more people up? And I guess then you'd have to deal with the cultural differences and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, so once again, I think it's sometimes these things are opportunistic. I had a colleague that I knew through the community that had a similar similar business over in Florida, and he was struggling to get great service out of his managed services partner that he was leveraging in the US. And it's a common story that we hear, is that the customer service in the US doesn't actually live up to the expectation that you would have. So he knew that we were running a managed services practice for the SQL Server environment in Australia, and he turned to me and said, would you be able to offer this service? And, you know, like any entrepreneur, you say yes to everything and then work out how you're then going to deliver that a little bit later. So we've sort of sometimes got that mantra of sell it first, install it later, and that was exactly what it was. And you know, he continued to grow that managed services practice with a number of other customers he brought across to us where we delivered that. He had a separation with his business partner. His business partner went over and started another business in another location in the US and brought us along for the ride. And look, we find that that's very similar to our story, is that you know, people continue to work with us, and that's because of the great service we offer. So we've decided to actually then continue to build on those relationships and then use a reseller model to then help support other organisations and to be able to grow. So for them, we've seen that there's a niche where organisations struggle to be able to reach scale to deliver true 24/7 service, so we can actually augment their team so they can focus on what's important whilst actually also being able to offer a support service directly to their customers as well.
That's awesome. Without being on the ground over in New Zealand and over in the UK, how did you identify that these are the next markets to spread into?
Yeah, so once again, opportunistic. So we've had a partner over in the UK reach out to us. We've done some market analysis and believe that we can continue to grow that. We'll actually hit a trade show actually in February to actually launch that service over in the UK as well. And look, New Zealand for us is really effectively, you know, you'd almost sort of sometimes call it the eastern state, not to offend any New Zealanders, but you know, I think there's a very close relationship between New Zealand and Australia, and a lot of organisations that deliver services across both entities.
In terms of, so for our guests that don't know exactly what Wardy IT Solutions do, would you be able to provide some case studies that, you know, things you've done for businesses in the past that's really helped them through?
Yeah, look, certainly. So the easiest way to think about Wardy IT Solutions is we help organisations turn their data into an asset. So that data is often locked up in various different systems, whether that's inside of an ERP or a finance system, or maybe a customer relationship management service. And really what we allow organisations to do is bring all of the data that they have across be able to unlock the value in it, but also allow them to tap into other external data as well, whether that's Google Analytics or maybe their email marketing platforms, so that they can then see what's going on there. So we've worked with organisations ranging from the largest financial services organisations in Australia all the way down to rural manufacturing facilities with 3 or 4 people that work inside of them and everything in between. So really it's about organisations that want to take that data and derive continual value out of that. So some of those case studies that we've worked with is organisations like Mad Mex, so the quick service restaurant there. So being able to help them understand their customers in greater detail to be able to then create tailored offerings and drive their marketing campaigns to increase how they actually increase their average revenue and average dollar sale across each of their customers there. We work with organisations like On-Site Rental as well, which is one of the largest rental facilities for mining services and other logistical services as well. We support their entire SQL Server environment there that then is a 24/7 operation there, making sure that that environment runs continually. We work with organisations like Covermore Travel Insurance as well, so supporting their global expansion. So as they move to a true 24/7 service and started to then deliver service offerings not only in Australia but through the US and other marketplaces, our virtual DBA service underpin supporting that entire database ecosystem for them.
Perfect. Bit of a strange question, but what's been like the most rewarding company that you've worked for, and the most rewarding case study you can think of in terms of how you've benefited the business?
Look, one of the things that always gives us a lot of pride is the non-for-profits that we work with there. So we've made a very conscious decision internally that not-for-profits are often trying to fight with one arm tied behind their back. So we actually offer them a free SQL Server health check to help optimise that environment with them. But we also then offer them discounted rates off our standard service offerings as well. So we've been able to see some amazing services being able to delivered by those non-for-profits profits, being able to sort of do more with less, and continue to get really excited when we have the opportunity to work with those in that sector.
Yeah, what non-profits have you worked with so far?
Yeah, look, we've worked with organisations varied, everything from the Leukemia Foundation through to Spinal Life that specialises in people that have actually had spinal injuries, all the way through to aged care service providers and everything in between.
Oh, that's amazing. In terms of other community give back, is there other thing that the Wardy Group, anything else I should say that the Wardy Group does to give back to the community?
Yeah, so look, one of my big passions is actually Variety, the children's charity. So we raise significant amounts of funds for Variety each year. We participate in the Variety Bash as part of that. We also provide all of our staff the opportunity to actually have a day off to be able to give back to a charity and be able to work directly with them. It's all built in our DNA that organically, so now that the change for cans and change containers has been introduced, being an IT service provider, we drink lots of Coke and lots of beer. So the guys in the office have made a conscious decision to collect all of those and then give the funds that from the change for containers directly to St Vincent de Paul as well. So it's really something that's not only driven by the leadership team, but it's actually now a cultural thing that's been embedded in the DNA of everybody that works for the organisation about how we can do more with our success.
And how many staff have you got at current?
Yeah, so currently we've got 72 people in the team based up and down the East Coast. Our largest workforce is in Brisbane, where our head office is, but we've got boots on the ground in Sydney, Canberra and Melbourne as well.
Yeah, perfect. And does each office have a sort of management there, or is it just you that sees the overarching of all of them?
Yeah, so we've got a leadership team that sits underneath me. Those team actually help run different parts of the operation of the business day to day. We've actually just introduced effectively what we call a data estate architect role, which is a senior role inside of each of our different locations. They also then have effectively remit to help drive that DNA and that culture that we have across each of those other offices outside of our cultural hub being in Brisbane.
As the business grows, inevitably the staff does as well. How have you gone about that growth, and has it been challenging sort of trying to manage more than just a small group of staff, and how's that gone?
Yeah, so I think the key thing that we did organisationally is realise that in order to scale, we have to have the right people in the right roles. And as we continue to evolve, those roles change as well. So we continue to review that structure and make sure we've got the right structure to support the ongoing growth of the business.
Yeah, and would you say as a younger entrepreneur that's just starting out, and they're going from a 2-staff process to a 10 staff, how would you say they sort of make sure they manage that properly in the growth?
Yeah, so look, people are obviously the most important asset in any business, and such a key part of being able to then deliver the vision that an entrepreneur has. So really it's about making sure that you hire the right people, both from a cultural fit, but also getting people that are just super smart and bring great ideas actually to the room as well. So I realised a long time ago that there's a lot I don't know, and by having great people around me, we can actually then create an even better vision.
Yeah, it's so important as a boss to understand that you don't know everything, I guess, and to take everyone's visions on board. How do you go about selecting the staff that work for you? Is there anything that you always look for in a candidate?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I've learned is just to step out of the road. I've got people that know how to do that a lot better than me. And look, I think sometimes when I've got my opinion, it's normally actually wrong, and I'm happy to admit that. So, look, I've just basically worked out that I need to step out of the way and let the people underneath me, especially my senior leadership team, really run with that and take that accountability. At the end of the day, they run their own P&L as part of the practice, so they actually live and die by the sword. So, giving them that accountability to then make those decisions. And really, I see my role very much as a coach. If you think about a football team, the coach actually is just responsible for setting the players up for success, but the people that actually score the tries and kick the goal are the players actually on the field there. So I see my role really about now more as a coach than actually a player actually as part of that team.
As a coach, what do you think is important to get those employees kicking those goals?
Yeah, I think it's support. I think that's the big thing, is actually always being there for them and being actually able to then help them, walk through things. And really often you're just that sounding board there for somebody to actually then have a discussion with. with, and as part of that, often they actually work out the solution just by simply articulating that to somebody else there. But really, for me, it's about always being open and the phone always being on for them.
Yeah, and apart from support, how do you make such a close, intricate workspace, I should say workplace?
Yeah, so I think that's really just continue to actually then foster and grow from a cultural perspective, because culture is so important. Culture can actually, to cause an organisation to fail, but it also can help accelerate and grow an organisation. So we use a number of different tools internally to help monitor and foster that culture and be able to then ensure that we're actually driving that. So we have a clear vision articulated about what we want the workplace to be, and then actually then monitor and measure that along the way. And really what we're finding is that the organisational culture is now being driven by individuals, so they're actually then influencing what we actually do and help continue to grow that. So simple things like the guys have actually now started a hiking club, so on a Friday morning they go out for a hike, and there's a number of people that go and do that, and that's not something that's been driven by the leadership team, that's just something that the guys internally have started to drive.
That's cool. And as the leadership team, what culture do you want to see for Wardy IT Solutions? What is the vision?
Yeah, so look, traditionally our culture, if we think about what it really was very simple. It was basically work hard and play harder. But really as we've grown, really the culture is actually about being very inclusive and really being actually able to focus on delivering a workplace that we recognise worldwide. And really it's about being that great place to work and being somewhere that people actually want to aspire to work with.
Yeah, you're so developed now in terms of business practices and everything like that. If we step back in time and speak to 25-year-old you, what would you have to say?
Look, I think, the great thing about being an entrepreneur is the ability to learn so much in such a compressed point in time. I often describe myself as the CEO, but often that CEO is Chief Entertainment Officer one day, Chief Bottle Washer the next day, and then effectively a psychologist, a financial balance, and all of these different skills under that. And I think that's the great thing about that is the continual ability to then go and learn on the job, as opposed to actually sitting in one role where you don't get exposed to all of those different experiences.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say to yourself at 25? Is there any specific lessons or anything like that you've learned that you think learning back then could have fast tracked a lot of this process?
Look, I think it's really, we often follow the Nike methodology, and I think I'd probably which is the just do it methodology, and I think I'd probably tell my 25-year-old self to just do it. So back yourself, know that you can actually then deliver on what that vision's going to be.
Yeah, do you find just jumping in the deep end with things is the best way to go about it?
Look, I think these days we're probably a little bit more planned around what we want to do rather than just executing on it and then worrying about how we deliver it later. I think there's a little bit more planning that goes into it. Sometimes that planning's nothing more than on the back of a beer coaster, but at least we do sort of start to think about what the impact of that is going to be, especially from a people perspective. So when we make change, we need to make sure from a change management perspective that that's handled correctly.
And if you were to wake up tomorrow and let's say for argument's sake, the business was gone, everything was gone, and you had to start from scratch, how would you go about doing that?
Look, I think, with HEX 720, that would be where we would then start to focus our attention. We'd continue to look for great IT opportunities out there. We think that Queensland's got an amazing culture. We think Queensland's got some great businesses there. So really be then, continue to focus on HEX 720 and using the skills and experience that we have, then being able to then take that into early stage organisations and help them grow and achieve some of the success that we've been able to.
Yeah, how do you see Queensland as an IT and tech sort of space compared to Sydney and Melbourne that you also have boots on the ground in?
Yeah, so I think it's very much everyone's inclusive in Queensland. I think if we look at some of the businesses down in Sydney that we've worked with, it almost feels like everyone's trying to climb over the top of each other to get to the top. Where in Queensland, everybody's very open and happy to share experiences and provide guidance, and there seems to be a little bit less of a competitive nature up here, which I think is good for early stage organisations because you then start to foster a rich community, and everybody then starts to then be able to grow as part of that.
Would you put that down to population, or would you put that down to a culture that we have here in Queensland?
Look, I think it's very much a cultural thing that we do that. I was talking to somebody in the mining services sector recently, and they were saying they saw it even actually, they were recently made redundant as a result of a company structural change in a business in the Southeast Pacific region, and they'd come back to Brisbane and had a look at some roles down in Sydney, and they felt exactly the same thing, that everyone was just trying to climb over the top of each other to get to the top, where I think Queensland's got a little bit more of a laid back attitude. Maybe that's a little bit more sun that we get exposed to up here that causes that.
I think it's the good weather that causes a lot of that a lot of that culture. Do you always see yourself staying within the Brisbane sort of region, or?
Yeah, look, I commute down to Sydney and Melbourne every single week of my life, typically, and there's nowhere I'd rather be than being in Brisbane. There's nothing better than getting the four-wheel drive out on the weekend or getting the boat out onto the bay. So, always going to call Brisbane home.
Perfect. Whereabouts in Brisbane are you located?
Yeah, so we live in Albion, so in the inner northern suburb there.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, nice and close to the city, but still leafy green.
Yeah, it's a great spot for us there. So
yeah, that's what I love about Brisbane. You can still get relatively close to the city, and the commute isn't absolutely massive like it is in Sydney. It's terrific. So any other lessons for people that are listening in? We did go over your achievements and some of the hardships and things like that. Has there been anything else that you'd like to share?
Look, I think the key thing is actually just stick at it. So often it takes a little bit longer than what you expect in order to get the outcomes. I think often we've got very high aspirations as entrepreneurs about what we want to achieve. And it's often, I think, hard to actually sort of sit back and actually recognise what you have been able to achieve as well. So I think recognising that, we all want to have, $1 million, $1 trillion businesses. But, sometimes if you have a look at what you've been able to achieve, you've been able to then deliver some great results and be able to really just take that step back and really take the accolades and along the way and recognise the team around you that then helps support and grow the business.
Well, what's the saying? Everyone overestimates what they can achieve in a year and drastically underestimates what they can achieve in 10 years. So
yeah, I think that's very, very true, and I think that was Bill Gates that actually originally termed that phrase many years ago. But really, I think it's about continue to drive and continue to push forward, and just work with the customers to help identify the opportunity. Because if there's a problem that you can solve for a customer, then you've got a great idea and a fantastic business that you can continue to accelerate and grow.
Yeah, I can tell you're very customer focused. Would you say the success of any business is all around just making sure you're doing what is best for the customer?
Yeah, look, for us, we've very much got that mantra about customer focus. So one of the things that we believe is help the customer first and worry about commercials later. So, for example, we do have a 24/7 support service. We sometimes have people that call that number that aren't customers of ours. They're in various states of disarray and need assistance. Our view is let's get in, just help them, and then we'll worry about how we actually then look at those commercials later with that customer, and then really demonstrate that. But I think it's testament to the high customer satisfaction ratings that we have when we then do net promoter scores with our customers, but the fact that our first customer is still a customer today, and that when a CIO moves from one organisation to the next, they take us along for the ride because they know of the outstanding service that we continue to provide.
That's amazing. 5 years down the line, where do you see the Wardy Group?
Look, I think that we're going to continue to grow, which is exciting, and our managed services practice is going to continue to grow throughout the world. Our IP is a standalone piece of IP now that's going to continue to grow with SQL Beacon then being used by many different organisations. And I think what we're going to start to see as we move to more and more cloud services is that our business is going to continue to grow as part of that transition with that, and still continue to be recognised as the leading provider of services in the Microsoft data estate.
Perfect. And as more does go to the cloud, do you think it's just going to be easier to run it from Australia and do it internationally?
Yeah, so I think we're going to continue to focus on building the team in Australia rather than internationally, and that's very much a deliberate play in order to do that. It means, like, for example, when our team were working on Christmas Day, because we do provide true 24/7 support where our team work in the office, by having them in a particular location, it means that we can do things like bring in Christmas turkey and ham and prawns for them to be able to celebrate those days, where when you start to then do that over a very large distance, it's often harder to then keep that culture, but also deliver that consistency of customer experience. So although we will deliver our services internationally over many different markets, we'll continue to then have our delivery services based in Australia.
I love the feel here. It's definitely got a very Australian culture within the IT walls. Definitely not something you see in the majority of IT companies either. That's great. So before I let you go, is there anything that you'd like to plug in, anything like that for the Wardy Group, and how they could get in contact if they were looking for your services, those sorts of things?
Yeah, look, certainly if anybody's interested in doing more with data, and I think most organisations today realise that data is the new oil and is really helping sort of drive that third wave of economy, is, you can reach out to us simply at wardית.com and feel free to, then have a look at what we do and make an inquiry on the website there.
Perfect. And where do you see data going in 5 years? I know that's an extremely broad question, but I'm just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so I think data is really going to start to drive and underpin a number of disruptive changes across sectors. So that data is what allows organisations to differentiate themselves from each other, and that data is really what's going to actually then start to accelerate change across businesses. We're seeing that in the fintech space at the moment, that organisations are being able to use data and be able to leverage that to deliver better service offerings and reduce the time to be able to deliver those services. We're seeing that across a number of other sectors as well, and that's going to continue to accelerate. And really, data is that asset that underpins that. There's been some studies recently that sees, after people, that data is the second most important asset that an organisation has. And I think over time, the same way that we think about plant and equipment as an asset on a balance sheet, longer term, potentially we're going to start to think about data as something we would put on a balance sheet as well, because of the competitive advantage it provides.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You've offered some amazing insight for people. Any last words to share at all?
Look, not at this point, but I'd really like to thank you for the opportunity of being on the podcast today. It's been a great experience, and wish you all the best and success in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning into the show today. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it, and jump over to lessonsfromsuccess.com.au and make sure you jump on that email list so I can notify you as soon as any more shows come out. I'm your host, Bryn Turner, and thank you so much for joining us.